Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HGM here with a big update to one of our strongest solo builds ever, the Nova Shield Magicka Templar. A build that specializes in automatic damage shields and passive healing over time that basically makes you unkillable if played correctly. And this build has seen some huge buffs in the latest ESO update, with even more shields, more damage, and more passive healing, making this build better than ever. I'm really excited to share this build update with all of you, so let's get right into it. All right, everybody, here we are back on the Magicka Templar. Time for a build update to our Nova Shield solo Magplar setup. This build is more ridiculous than ever. Pretty much impossible to die, I think, with this new setup. More shields, stronger shields, and yeah, just a lot of fun to play. So I figured it was a great time for an update. So let's go ahead and check out the buff stats on the build. Make sure our potion is up. And see what we got. So about 32k max Magicka, 23k max health, 13k max stamina, 1600 mag recovery, about 5000 spell damage. That, of course, will go up with our back bar glyph. 55% spell crit. And some decent pen and resists on this setup. Keep in mind, we are mostly about the damage shields, so that's where the majority of your survivability is going to come from. Now, you will want 64 points into max Magicka. Of course, being the Magicka Templar that we are. And then as far as buff food, I think you have a couple of options here. I'm currently running the Clockwork Citrus. This gives a good combination of max health, max Magicka, and Magicka recovery. I think you do want some Magicka recovery on this build. But whether you want the extra health or not will kind of be up to you and how comfortable you are. If you're more comfortable with less health, you can run the Ghastly Eye food. That's going to give you even more Magicka recovery, which is going to be useful as well. As far as the Mundus Stone, running the Thief for the extra crit chance. That's going to be very important on this build. Minor Protection, Major Prophecy. We'll talk about how we get those important buffs. Multiple ways we can get those, actually. In terms of your potions, I think you have a couple of options here. You can run just the basic, spell power potions if you want, if you have enough of those. If not, you actually have some flexibility in your skills where you can get your spell power from your skill, and then you can run just a basic Magicka potion. You can run tri-stat potions if you're doing more difficult content where you need to sprint and dodge roll, so lots of flexibility here. And then in terms of the race, I prefer High Elf on this build for a couple reasons. One is the Spell Recharge passive. This is one of the best racial passives in the game still. Gives you Magicka or Stamina back, whichever is lower. And it happens every 6 seconds. Plus you take less damage while channeling. Our main damage ability is a channel, so that does help a lot on the solo setup. Plus you get the max Magicka, plus the weapon and spell damage, so just a really good all-around choice. I think other good choices would be like Dark Elf, even Khajiit for the extra critical damage. Basically, anything with some Magicka-based stats is going to be what you want. But I think that covers the basics, so we can jump into the sets next. And this is where things are getting really interesting. A combination of old sets, some new sets. Basically, every set we have has a damage shield, which makes this build really indestructible. Starting off with Hexos Ward, I really do like this new set. It's super powerful. It is just an overland set as well. I put this on my Nightblade build the other week, and it's just so good, you guys. Check out the stats. Crit chance, weapon and spell damage, crit chance again, and dealing direct critical damage grants you a damage shield that absorbs up to 14,000 damage shield for 6 seconds. It has a 7-second cooldown, so basically only 1 second of downtime. As long as you're doing big crit damage, which we will be on the Magicka Templar, you're going to have this up almost all the time. Now notice that this is a medium armor set. This comes from the new Deadlands DLC. So if you don't have the Deadlands DLC, you can actually still get this because it is overland, it is tradable. You can find it on guild traders. But yes, we're running a medium armor set on a Magicka build. And this is what we can start doing now in Update 32 and the Deadlands. All the sets in the game are now hybrid as far as damage goes. You see we have the weapon and spell damage. Crit chance, of course, applies to both weapon and spell critical. And the damage shield is just ridiculous. So yes, very powerful set. You'll definitely want to check this out if you are interested in updating some of your solo builds. It's probably the best damage shield set in the game at this point, I think. It's really very strong. Now you can run this any way you want. I'm running it actually 2 pieces on the body. So I have the chest, the medium legs, and then 3 pieces of jewelry. But feel free to mix and match depending on what drops you get if you want to farm this yourself. Doesn't really matter. Keep in mind, medium armor pieces, like I have the medium legs and chest in this case, those give you bonus crit damage, which is going to be nice. But I don't think you would want like full medium because you're not going to get the cost reduction that you get with light armor. So just a couple things to keep in mind there. You want to make sure you're balancing the weight of your gear corresponding to the armor passives that you need, especially for sustain. And we'll look at those armor passives in just a little bit. So again, that's the first set, Hexos. Combining with that is an older set that I believe was recently updated. This is the Prayer Shawl set. This comes from the Spindle Clutch dungeon. You can run either version, 1 or 2. You can run it on normal. You can run it on veteran. And this is a light armor set that gives a shield as well. This gives us max magicka, weapon and spell damage, magicka recovery, so some decent 2 through 4 piece. But then check out this 5-piece bonus and how the shield works. This was actually really surprising to me. I think it did change maybe a couple patches ago and I just didn't notice. When you overheal yourself or an ally, grant them a damage shield, about 6k damage for 6 seconds. But this can occur once every 2 seconds. That's very unusual as far as damage shield sets go in ESO. And I think the reason is this is like a healer-focused damage shield set where you could get this proc on multiple, party members because they did reduce the cooldown to 2 seconds. Now, the really cool thing about being a solo build and running this is it still works on yourself every 2 seconds. That means pretty much as soon as this damage shield breaks, you're going to get it again. You're going to have it up basically constantly as long as you have self-healing, which we know the Magicka Templar has some of the best self-healing in the game, whether it's from sweeps, whether it's from our rune. This damage shield is always going to be up because you have that self-healing and your health is also protected from your other damage shields. So it's a really powerful option. I was glad I tried this older set out again because it's so good on this build. And again, this is a light armor set, so it's going to run well on the Magicka setup, give us a lot of good cost reduction. And we can run that, any way you want. You could run it 5 pieces on the body if you want. Currently, I'm using 3 pieces on the body and then the front bar weapon. So we got the prayer shawl feet, the gloves, the waist, and then we got the staff. Lightning staff, if you can get it, that would be ideal. This build also works with Hexos as the staff. Either way you get it, it's totally fine. Now, the trait for your main staff, you have a couple of good options. I'm running Precise. I think Precise will give you the best damage, increasing your crit chance. But you can see I'm also running the Hardening Glyph here. That's going to give me an extra damage shield, about 4k damage shield here. If you want even more shield, which would be like ridiculous, but you could do it, you could switch this over to an infused trait. You'd get about 6k damage shield from that. That'll be up 100% of the time as well, as long as you're light or heavy attacking. So again, we got shields on top of shields. And then speaking of shields for the monster set, of course, we're bringing back the classic Ice Heart. Running this 2 pieces of light, by the way, we get the good crit chance bonus and the almost 6k damage shield for 6 seconds. Plus it's doing some decent frost damage. You'll get good DPS from this actually, now that this can crit in update 32. And then finally, in terms of the back bar weapon, pretty much anything you want will be fine here. Maelstrom Staff is always a good option. Got the Maelstrom Lightning Staff infused with a weapon and spell damage enchant. That's going to be ideal for increasing that spell damage. Of course, you could use a crafted set, something like that. It's not a huge difference if you don't have this yet. So again, we got Hexos Ward. Let's just go over the shields here really quick. So Hexos gives us 14,000 damage shield. Prayer Shawl, that's going to be almost 6k. Ice Heart, another 6k or so. So we're up to about 26,000 damage shield at this point. That's more than our max health. Plus, whenever this, front bar glyph is procced, you're getting closer to 30k damage shields on this character. And then plus, we have a passive damage shield from our skills on the front bar. That gets us close to 35k total shields on this build. All passive shields, by the way. You don't have to do anything, which is the beauty of this build. Basically indestructible, the way we've worked this out. So that's the main setup. I will have some alternate options listed in the written guide if you don't have these sets, or if you don't have the Deadlands DLC yet, for example. We'll have some backup sets listed there in case you need those. But let's go ahead and jump to the skills next. Front bar, lightning staff. We've got Radiant Glory that comes from Dawn's Wrath. This is our execute ability. It also heals us back with this morph. That's why I prefer this over the other more damaging morph. Not a huge difference in damage, but the extra healing definitely helps. Next up, I've got Solar Barrage here. This is great for AoE. If you're farming XP, for example, this will be really nice. But if you want to save some money on your potions, this will be the spot to put Degeneration. That, of course, is from the Mages Guild. That's going to give you that major sorcery buff for 24 seconds. Next to that, we got Elemental Drain. This comes from Destruction Staff. And this is our armor debuff. This is going to be important since we're not running the Lover Mundus. On this build, we're running Thief, so we want the extra, major breach debuff on targets. Plus some extra Magicka back through the minor Magicka Steel debuff. This is really great. Next, we got Puncturing Sweep, which is, of course, the main DPS skill on this build. This comes from Adric's Spear. That's your first skill. Does really good damage. Great passives from this skill line. You also get 40% healing back. It's just, gotta have it. Just gotta have it on the Magicka Templar. And then finally, Inner Light from the Mages Guild again for some passive max Magicka. Finally, for the front bar ultimate, Psijic Order Temporal Guard is going to be ideal for an extra damage shield. And you don't see it here on the tooltip of the skill. It actually comes through the passives, which we'll look at in a minute. But you basically get a free damage shield, another 5 to 6k extra damage absorbed whenever you block. So you're going to be blocking anyway, things like, boss, heavy attacks. It just makes this even better. Jump to the back bar skills. And we have Vampire's Bane. This comes from the Dawn's Wrath skill line. That's your first skill here. And this is a great single target damage over time. This actually also gives you extra spell damage through our Templar passives. So really good skill. And then Blockade of Storms is going to be next. Destruction Staff, second ability here. And this, of course, is mainly for the infused damage glyph on our back bar. Gives us about 500 or 600 extra spell damage all the time. Then we've got Ritual of Retribution. This comes from Restoring Light. Very strong AoE damage over time. Deals magic damage, plus it cleanses harmful effects. Definitely recommend that. And then our two buffs, finally. We got Channeled Acceleration from Psijic Order. So that is your third ability here. This gives us the Minor Force buff for 36 seconds. So that's bonus crit damage. Plus some extra movement speed for 12 seconds. It's a great buff to have. And then finally, Channeled Focus. That's coming from Restoring Light again. This is our main armor buff, plus extra health, plus Magicka Sustain. It's very good. As far as the back bar ultimate, you have a couple of options here. If you'd like to do more damage, if you're feeling good about your survivability, which you probably will be with this update since our shields are so strong, then Thunderous Rage definitely gives you the best damage possible. That comes from the Destruction Staff, so max that out. You'll get access to that ultimate. And then the other option that's really good on this build, which I've used a lot in the past, is Nova morphed to Solar Disturbance. So the reason this is really good is it doesn't do as much damage. You can see it's about half the damage on the tooltip, but it also applies Major Maim. So that's a 10% damage debuff on all targets, which does up your survivability quite a bit. Especially if you're fighting a large pack of enemies, this can help a lot. So there you go. That is the basic setup. Now we can do a quick rotation here on the world boss just to check it out. So as far as buffs, it's pretty simple. Let me switch over my pot. I don't need the spell damage right now. So Channeled Acceleration is your longest buff. Start with that. Then your Focus, put that down on the ground. And then you can apply your 3 dots on the back bar. Of course, bar swap and buff your damage. Debuff the boss with Elemental Drain, and then you're just sweeping. Probably about 4 or 5 sweeps before you need to go back. Rebuff your dots. Rebuff your rune. Of course, if your ultimate's ready, you can drop that as well. You can see my debuffs on the front are dropping, so I'll recast those. Drain and degen, and then I'm just using my sweeps. Use your potion if you need it. Make sure you keep up those back bar buffs and dots. Make sure also you're light attacking in between, all of your sweeps. That's going to proc that damage shield enchant. Very important for the extra shield. Since the boss is low, about 20%, 25%, you can start executing with Radiant Glory. There you go. Super easy. I don't think my health dropped below full. that entire fight, so that's kind of the point of the build. Just makes it super easy. All right, in terms of passives, what do you need on the Magicka Templar? Adric Spear, this is all good. You want all of these for sure. Piercing Spear for the extra crit damage. Spear Wall for the minor protection buff. Burning Light does extra magic damage that's going to proc off your sweeps. And then Balanced Warrior did get a nice update recently. It's now giving you spell damage plus physical and spell resistance. It's great for Magicka Templars too. Dawn's Wrath is good as well. You want Enduring Rays to increase your dot durations. Prism does give you some ultimate back. Illuminate, we talked about the extra, spell damage that Magicka Templar has access to. They get the minor sorcery buff. No other class gets that, so this is really nice. They'll give you about 400, 500 extra spell damage on this build. And then Restoring Spirit is great. Make sure you pick this one up too. This reduces all of your costs. Restoring Light, these are more group focused, so you won't need these quite as much on a solo build. The best one for sure would be Sacred Ground. Pick this one up. While channeling in that rune focus, we're going to get Minor Mending, so that's bonus 8% healing. That affects all the healing that you're doing, from your Puncturing Sweep, for example, or your Execute. Those are going to heal you for even more. Of course, you will want all of your Destruction Staff passives. We're double barring Destro Staff. Now, we talked about the different, armor passives that we want. We're focused mostly on light armor. I'm using 5 light, 2 medium, which you saw in the gear section. The main reason for that is this passive right here, Evocation. This gives us bonus Magicka recovery and Magicka cost reduction per piece. So you will want, 4 or 5 pieces of light armor at least. This is going to help a lot with your sustain. That's why I said if you go full medium, you can do it technically. It's not going to hurt your gear stats, but it's going to hurt your recovery because you're not going to have this passive. Now, the other really nice thing about light armor is the last 2 passives. Prodigy gives you spell crit, and concentration gives you that spell pen. Very good for extra damage. Of course, medium armor gives you some good stuff too. We got 2 pieces of medium. This gives us extra crit damage and crit healing. Some extra stam recovery is never a bad thing. Plus, we get bonus spell damage and movement speed. So we got a nice balance, I think, of armor passives on this build. It works really well. In terms of guild passives, yes, we're using a lot of guild skills on this build. Mage's Guild, for example, you will want these, especially Magicka Controller. This gives you bonus Max Magicka and Magicka Recovery, 4% on the front bar. And then Psijic Order, we talked about that free damage shield that we're getting from Temporal Guard. That's called Concentrated Barrier, so make sure to unlock that as soon as possible. Of course, you will want your racial passives, which we talked about already. And then Alchemy, Medicinal Use for the extra potion duration. Talking about champion points next, I will have this in the written guide, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. But I'll show you the basic slotted stars that you want. In the green tree, I prefer Steed's Blessing. And then, of course, Treasure Hunter, giving you the extra quality of loot in treasure chests. Rationer for the extra duration on our food buff. And then Liquid Efficiency, especially if you're using Spell Power or Tripots. This will be great for saving some of those. Over in the blue tree, basic setup, starting with Precision, Piercing. And then our main 3 damage stars, our slotted here, are going to be Biting Aura, Master at Arms, Thaumaturge, and then the 4th slotted, Biting Finesse. If you have more points, definitely come down here into Staving Death. These are defensive stars, and these are passive. So for example, Preparation, you get a lot of damage reduction here, 10% just for 20 points. Moving into Red Tree, this is actually really important for the build. The main thing you'll want to do is, starting with Sprinter, come up to Hasty, Hero's Vigor, and then you'll need to get Shield Master. Now you're not going to slot this, you just want this to unlock Bastion. And this is giving us 15% extra damage shields. This counts for sets, this counts for skills, passives, abilities, everything we're using. Then I would also recommend Rejuvenation, Fortified, and Boundless Vitality. All right, everybody, and with that said, that's going to wrap up this latest update to our Nova Shield Magicka Templar build, the solo Magicka Templar for ESO. Hope y'all enjoyed this one and you found it informative. Of course, if you did, do us a favor and crush that like button. That way YouTube knows to share this build out with as many people as possible. If you'd like to see more builds like this, solo builds, build updates for the Elder Scrolls Online, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with your notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. And finally, a huge shout out to our channel members here at HDM. If you'd like to support what we do on the channel, clicking that join button is a great way to do it. And it comes with some pretty great perks like early access to to videos at Tier 1 and our complete members-only build library at Tier 2. So if you're interested in that, just click on that join button for more information. If you have any questions on the build or you want to see other options, remember we do have a full written guide on our website, hacktheminotaur.com. There will have alternate gear, alternate skills, a full CP breakdown for 300, 600, 900, 1200 champion points, plus a full companion build that makes this one even stronger. There's a lot of extra content there, so I definitely recommend you check it out. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.